Hello, friends! Welcome to Kiwi Kani Kids.
Hiya!
In the Valley of Whispering Pines, nestled precariously close to the towering peaks known as the Giant's Roost, lay the small, quaint village of Hearthwood. Its houses, built low and sturdy, seemed to huddle together like frightened mice, and for good reason. Above them, unseen but ever-present, lived the giants. Not malicious beings, no, but colossal, indifferent forces of nature whose casual strides could send tremors through the very ground, whose falling pebbles were boulders to Hearthwood, and whose deep, rumbling snores echoed like distant thunder, rattling the window panes and the very bones of the villagers. Life in Hearthwood was a constant dance with anxiety. Every morning, the first light brought with it the silent prayer that today, no giant would wander too close, no colossal foot would accidentally descend upon their homes. Children played not with carefree abandon, but with one ear always tuned to the subtle shifts in the earth, ready to dart into the safety of the communal shelters. Their laughter was often punctuated by quick, nervous glances skyward, even though the giants themselves were usually shrouded in the perpetual mists that clung to the upper reaches of the mountains. The fear wasn't of malice, but of sheer, overwhelming scale, of being an ant beneath an elephant's foot. Tim, a boy of 10 with eyes that held the wisdom of ancient forests and a spirit as quiet as the dawn, felt this fear more acutely than most. He wasn't the strongest or the loudest, but he was observant, endlessly curious, and possessed a quiet determination that burned like a hidden ember. He spent his days not just helping his mother with chores, but also sketching the patterns of the wind, charting the paths of the mountain streams, and, most importantly, studying the subtle shifts in the earth when the giants moved. He yearned for a life where the ground didn't tremble, where the sky wasn't a constant threat, where the children of Hearthwood could truly run free. This was his secret wish, a silent plea whispered to the rustling leaves and the flowing river. One particularly unsettling morning, a tremor stronger than usual shook Hearthwood. A giant, it seemed, had stumbled. A cascade of rocks, large enough to crush a house, tumbled down the mountainside, narrowly missing the village elder, Alara, as she tended her garden. Panic rippled through the village. Elder Alara, with her silver hair and eyes that had seen 100 seasons of fear, looked more weary than ever. "We cannot live like this forever," she murmured, her voice barely a whisper, yet it carried the weight of generations of unspoken dread. Tim, watching from his window, felt a cold knot of despair tighten in his stomach. But then, a spark. He remembered an old story, a forgotten legend whispered by his grandfather about ancient tunnels, a hidden path beneath the very roots of the mountains, said to lead to a land untouched by giant footsteps. It was a faint hope, a thread of a dream, but it was enough to ignite a flicker in Tim's quiet heart. Driven by this newfound fragile hope, Tim began to explore. He spent weeks poring over dusty scrolls in the village archives, deciphering faded maps, and listening to the hushed tales of the oldest villagers. He traced forgotten paths along the riverbanks, ventured into overgrown thickets, and climbed rocky outcrops that most avoided. His search was solitary, often frustrating, but his quiet resolve never wavered. Then, one afternoon, while exploring a forgotten cave at the base of a lesser peak, hidden behind a veil of ivy and moss, he found it. Not a grand entrance, but a narrow, almost invisible fissure in the rock, barely wide enough for him to squeeze through. Inside, etched into the damp stone wall, was a symbol he recognized from one of the ancient maps. A winding path leading downwards, away from the giant's realm, and beside it, a faint, almost erased inscription, "The Way Below." Tim returned to Hearthwood, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. He approached Elder Alara, the most respected and wise among them. He unrolled the ancient map he'd painstakingly pieced together, pointing to the symbol and the faint lines that snaked away from their valley. "Elder Alara," he began, his voice surprisingly steady, "I believe I have found a way out." He explained his discovery, the hidden entrance, the faint inscription. Alara listened, Her eyes, usually filled with a gentle sadness, now held a glimmer of something Tim hadn't seen before: cautious hope. She knew the legends, but had always dismissed them as old wives' tales. Yet, Tim's earnestness, his quiet conviction, was undeniable. Word spread through Hearthwood, not like wildfire, but like a slow, steady tide. Some villagers scoffed, dismissing Tim's discovery as a child's fantasy. Tunnels? Beneath the mountains? It's madness! We'll be trapped, crushed, or lost forever, cried Barnaby, a burly farmer known for his booming voice and even louder skepticism. Others, weary from generations of fear, clung to the idea with desperate hope. "What choice do we have?" whispered Lena, a young mother clutching her infant daughter close. "To stay is to wait for the inevitable." Tim, with Elder Alara's quiet backing, began to rally them. He didn't shout or demand. Instead, he spoke calmly, logically, about the risks of staying versus the potential for a new beginning. He showed them the map, explained the symbols, and described the hidden entrance. He spoke of the possibility of a life free from constant dread, a place where children could play without fear. Elder Alara, standing beside him, lent her authority. "Tim has shown us a path," she announced to the assembled villagers, her voice clear and strong. "It is a path of uncertainty, yes, but also a path of hope. We have lived too long under the shadow. It is time to seek the sun." Slowly, hesitantly, the villagers began to agree. The fear of the unknown was great, but the fear of the known, the giants, was greater. Preparations began. They gathered what they could carry: dried foods, water skins, blankets, tools, and precious keepsakes. The air in Hearthwood, usually heavy with resignation, now hummed with a nervous energy, a mix of apprehension and a fragile, burgeoning hope. Tim, despite his youth, became their quiet leader, organizing supplies, assigning tasks, and reassuring the fearful. He worked tirelessly, his small frame radiating a quiet strength that inspired confidence. The decision was made. They would leave at dawn, under the cloak of the mountain mists, before the giants stirred. The journey into the tunnels was daunting. The entrance, once a small fissure, opened into a vast, echoing darkness. The air was cool and damp, carrying the scent of earth and ancient stone. The light from their flickering torches barely pierced the gloom, casting dancing shadows that seemed to twist into monstrous shapes. The path sloped downwards, uneven and treacherous. Children whimpered, and even the adults felt the cold grip of fear. Barnaby, despite his earlier skepticism, now walked near the front, his lantern held high, his gruff exterior hiding a deep-seated anxiety. Lena clung to Tim's arm at one point, her eyes wide with fear. "Are you certain, Tim? Are you certain this is the way?" Tim squeezed her hand, his own heart thumping, but he met her gaze with unwavering resolve. "We will find our way, Lena," he promised, his voice a steady anchor in the swirling fear. Days blurred into an endless procession of steps. The tunnels twisted and turned, sometimes narrow and claustrophobic, sometimes opening into vast, cavernous spaces where their voices echoed into nothingness. The greatest challenge came on the third day. A low rumble, far deeper than any giant's snore, vibrated through the rock. Panic erupted. "Cave in!" someone screamed. Dust and small pebbles rained down from the ceiling. A section of the tunnel ahead collapsed, blocking their path with a mountain of rubble. Despair threatened to engulf them. Barnaby slumped against a wall, muttering, "It's over, we're trapped." But Tim, though momentarily stunned, quickly regained his composure. He remembered a passage in one of the old texts about secondary routes, smaller passages used for ventilation or emergency. He pointed to a barely visible crack in the wall near the cave-in. "There, a bypass. It's small, but it might lead around." He immediately began to clear away smaller stones, urging others to help. Elder Alara, despite her age, helped steady the younger ones, her calm voice a balm to their frayed nerves. Barnaby, seeing Tim's unwavering determination, picked up a sturdy branch and began to pry at the larger rocks. Together they worked, sweat mingling with dust, their fear slowly giving way to a desperate shared purpose. It took hours, but they managed to clear enough space for them to squeeze through, one by one, into a parallel, narrower passage. The air was stale, the darkness absolute, but they were moving forward. Their journey continued, fraught with new challenges. They encountered strange, phosphorescent fungi that glowed with an eerie light, illuminating grotesque shadows on the walls. They stumbled upon vast underground lakes, their waters still and black, requiring them to build makeshift rafts from fallen timbers and woven reeds. And then, there were the creatures. Not monstrous beasts, but unsettling beings adapted to the deep earth. Blind, pale worms as thick as a man's arm, their soft bodies brushing against their legs in the darkness, eliciting gasps of disgust and fear. Swarms of tiny, chittering insects that clung to their clothes, harmless but unnerving. And once, a creature with too many spindly legs and eyes that reflected the torchlight like polished obsidian, scuttling away into the shadows before they could get a clear look. These encounters tested their resolve, pushing them to the brink of their endurance. Supplies dwindled, and hunger gnawed at their bellies. Doubts began to creep in, whispering insidious questions. Was this a mistake? Will we ever see the sun again? Tim, too, felt the weight of their despair. There were moments in the deepest, darkest parts of the tunnels when he felt utterly lost, when the enormity of his responsibility threatened to crush him. He missed the sunlight, the familiar sounds of hearthwood, even the distant rumbling of the giants. One night, huddled in a small alcove, listening to the soft sobs of a child, he almost gave up. But then, he felt a gentle hand on his shoulder. It was Elder Alara. "You carry a heavy burden, young Tim," she said softly, "but you do not carry it alone. Look around you." Tim looked. In the dim torchlight, he saw Lena sharing her last piece of dried fruit with a shivering child. He saw Barnaby, despite his exhaustion, meticulously checking the path ahead. He saw the quiet resilience in their faces, the shared hope, however faint. "We follow you, Tim," Alara continued, "because you showed us a way when there was none. Keep walking. We are with you." Her words, simple yet profound, rekindled the ember of hope within him. He was not just a boy with a map. He was their guide, their hope, and they, in turn, were his strength. After what felt like an eternity, a faint, almost imperceptible change occurred. The air grew fresher, carrying a hint of damp earth and something else, something green and alive. A tiny, almost invisible crack appeared high above them, letting in a sliver of pale, ethereal light. Hope surged through the weary villagers. They quickened their pace, their exhaustion forgotten, their eyes fixed on that distant glimmer. The passage began to ascend, the air growing warmer, the light strengthening. The sounds of dripping water gave way to the faint chirping of unseen birds. Then, with a final, arduous climb, they emerged. Not into a grand, sun-drenched valley, but into a hidden grotto, lush with ferns and moss, bathed in a soft, diffused light filtering through a canopy of ancient trees. A small, clear stream burbled over smooth stones, its sound a symphony of peace. Above them, the sky was a brilliant, cloudless blue, stretching endlessly, without the looming shadow of any giant. The air was sweet, filled with the scent of wildflowers and fresh earth. For a moment, they stood in stunned silence, their eyes blinking against the gentle light, their ears trying to comprehend the absence of tremors, the silence of the giants. Then, the dam broke. Tears streamed down faces, not of sorrow, but of overwhelming relief and joy. Lena sank to her knees, clutching her daughter, sobbing with gratitude. Barnaby let out a whoop of pure exhilaration, a sound that echoed through the grotto, unburdened by fear. Elder Alara smiled, a deep, peaceful smile that reached her eyes, reflecting the sunlight. Tim, standing amidst them, felt a warmth spread through his chest, a feeling more profound than any he had ever known. He had done it. They had done it. Over the next few weeks, the grotto became their new hearthwood. They built simple shelters from fallen timber and woven branches, their hands working with a newfound energy and purpose. The stream provided clean water, the forest offered berries and small game, they discovered that the grotto was part of a much larger, secluded valley, protected on all sides by gentle, forested hills, far, far away from the giant's roost. Here, the ground was solid, the sky was clear, and the only sounds were the whisper of the wind through the trees and the laughter of children, finally, truly free. Tim, no longer just the quiet boy, but the respected leader who had guided them to safety, watched them. He saw children running and playing without a single glance skyward, their laughter echoing freely. He saw adults working with a lightness in their steps, their faces no longer etched with fear, but with peace and contentment. The memory of the giants remained, a distant, almost mythical tale, but their shadow no longer fell upon their lives. Hearthwood had found its true home, not just a place, but a feeling of security, a community forged in shared hardship and boundless hope. And in the heart of it all, a quiet boy's wish had blossomed into a vibrant, peaceful reality, a testament to courage, resilience, and the enduring power of a single, unwavering dream.
Did you enjoy our story? See you in our next story.
Don't forget to subscribe.
And come back for more fun. Kiwi, Kani, kids!